Greetings, viewer! How are you? I hope you're doing well. I was putting some strings on this thing today and I decided that I wanted to do a video on it because, well, I mean, just look at it. It's so cool. It's one of my favourite guitars. Not just for what it is, but for the story behind it, which I'll get into later. But yeah, it's an Applause by Ovation AE147, and it's older than I care to admit, because that makes me older than I care to admit. But yeah, basically Applause was, and I think still is, the budget end of the Ovation brand, made in China, composite back like its more expensive cousins, wooden top, in this case laminated spruce, I think, maple neck, rosewood fingerboard, the usual sort of thing. Piezo pickup under the bridge, 3-band EQ, really lovely sound, and of course the trademark leaf sound holes, which yeah, that's pretty cool. Not just a pretty design either. You used to be able to buy like these sound hole plugs that you could put in each of these individual little holes and almost EQ the sound of the guitar through them. So like if you plugged up the thicker, sorry, the wider holes, it would cut more bass out of the sound that the guitar projected, which was kind of cool, you know. But it was easier if you were going to be recording to, instead of doing that, just like plug in the pickup, because it's a very transparent pickup and you get the sound of the guitar. Maybe a little bit clinical, needs a little bit of reverb I find, but it's fairly transparent. And back in the day, you know, a 3-band EQ and pickup and everything was quite a premium thing for a budget instrument to have. Yeah, and like I said, you know, one of the joys of owning an instrument is knowing the stories behind them. You know, or at least I think it is. I certainly find whenever I've bought a used instrument, it's been like, you know, what's the story behind any of the little knocks on it and everything else. You know, what's the story of the instrument? How has it gotten to here? What's its life been? And I've had this since it was new. Way back in the day, I was going through a really rough patch in my life. I had found myself without anywhere to live. All of my stuff was in people's basements, and thankfully I had a couple of friends who were in a house share and they had a sofa going spare, so I was basically, you know, no proper house and living on people's sofas. Pretty rough time, you know. Relationship that I was in kind of broke down and everything was looking pretty grim. But I either sort of had to give up or do something, and Jenny, the friend who invited me to sleep on the sofa, said to me, you know, I'll give you some money to polish, you know, send your CV off to a CV polishing place and see if that can help you get a job. And it did. Honestly, it actually did. And when I got that job, it was shit, but it enabled me to be able to move into a friend's spare room and start paying rent. And then, I mean, it was a terrible job. Nasty place to work, horrible hours, but a bit of stability. You know, I'd given up drugs not long before that as well, and so I was kind of still getting like cravings for speed and all sorts of other things. And yeah, eventually, like, I registered with a job agency and managed to get myself a job at the local council, and it was like a proper job, you know. And for the first time in my life, I was earning more than just like just enough to keep a roof over my head. And so as a present to myself for managing to get myself out of that hole, I was going to buy myself a really nice guitar. I'd started playing around with recording stuff, and I needed something that I could plug into a sound card. So I was looking for an electroacoustic, and I saw this on an online retailer's page, and I just fell in love with it. You know, when I was growing up, we would watch the Plant and Page No Quarter acoustic video quite a lot in our house. You know, my dad really liked it, and Jimmy Page had a few ovations with the cool leaf sound holes, and I was like, damn, one day I'm going to have one like that. And so, as a reward for managing to turn my shit around and stay clean and keep a roof over my head for, you know, a decent amount of time, I bought myself this. You know, it's, I suppose, like any instrument, it's more than just plastic, wood and metal. It's every experience it's been through and every emotion that's been played through it still lives in it somewhere, you know? And every time I play it, I'm reminded of that sense of achievement, you know. And it's not just that it's been like a trophy guitar. It's got its knocks and dings because, you know, the things that I've done with it, like there's a photo of me sitting on a lawn in Dorset because a friend of a friend invited a bunch of us down to go on holiday, and, you know, myself and the bass player of the band I was in were sat in like this idyllic fucking garden writing songs. I've played it on stage at festivals. I've written EPs on it and albums. You know, it's been on so many recordings. It's been on so many stages, and yeah, I don't know. There's something about having a journey with an instrument, you know. And don't get me wrong, every one of my instruments has its own journey with me and its own story. But there's something about, I can still remember the day that I came home and my housemate had taken delivery of it for me, and it was just, yeah, you know. And looking at it now, it still looks gorgeous. It's still that guitar that I look at and think, yeah, you know, 15-year-old me would be well impressed. But, you know, that's what collecting instruments is about, isn't it? It's the meaning and the story and the journey. Yeah. Anyway, that's my phone buzzing. But yeah, look after your instruments, guys. You know, they'll look after you if you look after them. And if you keep them in good playable condition, even something cheap from China can sound good and will last you forever. And, you know, never forget the fun that you have with them. Bit of an odd video, I guess, today, so I don't know. If this didn't bore you too much, do the likey, sharey, subscribey thing, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye bye.